This Torah class is brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.
Okay, we say in Tehillim in Parak Pei Aleph, Tiku b'chodesh Shofar b'kesel yom chagenu b'choik Yisrael hu mishpel l'elokei Yaakov. We mentioned that Rosh Hashanah is b'chodesh, that Rosh Hashanah is on the new moon, Rosh Chodesh, and we say Shofar. The Medrash comments on these two words, b'chodesh, and on the word Shofar. Says the Medrash in Vayikra Rabbah, Parak Chavtes, Parsha Chavtes, Oisvav, B'chodesh zeh techadshu ma'asechem, b'shofar shapru ma'asechem. That we have two responsibilities on the Yom Tov of Rosh Hashanah. Number one, we need to renew. We need to reinvigorate our actions. We need to be mechadesh them. And number two, we need to be meshaper them. Shofar is a lashon of shipur, to beautify, to make beautiful, to make perfect. So the Medrash is saying that the message of this pasuk is b'chodesh. B'chodesh hazeh tichadshu ma'asechem, make your actions new, and b'chodesh hazeh shapru ma'asechem, make them beautiful. Says Rabbi Petterberg, every Jew knows that our Torah, we have two primary responsibilities. Number one, we have to keep the mitzvah saseh. You have to eat your matzah, eat your maror, sit in the sukkah, shake your lulav and esrog, blow your shofar, learn Torah, daven, talis and tefillim, mitzvah saseh. And then we have mitzvahs loy saseh. Don't speak lashon hara, don't speak sheker, don't speak flattery, don't speak insulting words, don't wear shatnez, don't drink blood, don't eat tarfus, and so on. These are the two areas of serving Hashem. Everybody knows if you do a mitzvah, it sanctifies you. Everyone knows if you don't do an aveira, it sanctifies you. Everybody knows if you do an aveira, it defiles you. Everybody knows if you don't do the mitzvah, it also defiles you. Fine. Let's think for a moment. Where are we more lax? In what area are we more lacking? Is it in lack of fulfilling positive commandments, or is it in violating negative commandments?
First one.
Says Rabbi Petterberg, it is in violating negative commandments. Yeah, most Jews, they eat their matzah. The Yitzhar is not going to come to you and say, this year don't eat the matzah. I mean, an observant Jew is going to eat his matzah. You're going to make kiddush on Shabbos. Did you ever have a nisayon? Should I make kiddush? Should I not make kiddush? Should I take my luv? Right, you bought the luv and esrog. And then the Yitzhar says, don't take it today. Of course not. You're going to do your mitzvah saseh. Don't say Shema. You're going to do your mitzvah saseh. But when it comes to mitzvahs, to lavin in the Torah, Yitzhar says, speak the lashon hara. Speak the sheker. Don't be careful about this lav, about what you look at, what you listen to, what you say. So certainly, in terms of our own observance, we can be very certain that we are more lacking in keeping the lois aseh than in keeping the aseh. And the question is, why is that? The answer is very simple. Obviously, the Yetzer Hara is more active trying to get us to violate lavin than to get us to not fulfill mitzvah saseh. And the question is, why? Why does the Yetzer Hara exert most of his effort in trying to get us to violate averos than exerting effort not to get us to fulfill mitzvahs? Says Rav Petterberg in the Koich Vayar. Now, actually, it's very interesting. Koich Vayar. There are two Koich Vayars. Both were written by Rav Petterberg. A few weeks ago, we spoke at a Shiur from the Koich Vayar. That Koich Vayar is part of what we call Ar Yisrael, part of the writings of Rabbi Yisrael Salanter. And we know Rav Petterberg published the letters of Rabbi Yisrael Salanter, and together with the letters of Rabbi Yisrael Salanter, he published the kuntres called Koich Vayar, Nesivos Ar, and Sharei Ar. This Koich Vayar is a separate volume of brief Divrei Musar from Rav Petterberg, and this is where this shiur comes from. And Rav Petterberg says, why is it that the Yetzer Hara exerts most of his efforts to get us to violate lavin? He says, very simple. Look at number 5, the Gemara in Yuma.
Baruch charged him with. That's where he was created.
Yeah, but he was created to get us to stumble. So why is he focusing on the lavin? So the Gemara says in Yuma, Daf Lamed Tes, Tana Devei Rabbi Shmuel, Avera metamtemes liboy shaladam. A sin defiles the heart of man. Sin clouds our heart. It makes our heart gestoppt. It makes it sullied, dirtied, filthy, cloudy. An Avera brings us down. It clouds us. Right? Like the Gemara says, Habala Tameh, Paischen Lai. You want to make yourself tummy when you do an Avera, when you speak Lashon Hara. You're filthying your soul. When you eat tarfas, you're filthying your soul. So the next time you come to a Shiur and you hear Divrei Torah, you're sitting there like this. Huh? You can't even think. Your mind is clogged up. Yetzer Hara, he says, sometimes he'll say, eat this food, he wants you to clog up your arteries, or sometimes he wants you to clog up your mind. And Avera clouds your mind, clouds the neshama. So Yetzer Hara says yes. Now how about if a person doesn't do a positive commandment? Does that cloud your mind? Does that defile you? Yeah, but not as much. Actively violating the Torah clogs up your mind more than passively not fulfilling the positive commandments. So Yetzer Hara says, why waste my time getting the guy not to eat matzah? Why waste my time getting the guy not to take the lulav and esrog? Why waste my time getting the guy not to put on the tefillin? I'll get him to speak Lashon Hara. That will sully him, defile him, cloud his mind, and then he's mine.
Yeah, create a Yetzer Tov.
Yeah.
So, why did HaKadosh Baruch Hu allow the Yetzer Hara to be more powerful than the Yetzer Tov than most people?
Well, Gemara says that the Yetzer Hara overpowers a person every day, and without the help of Hashem, we couldn't overcome it. The Yetzer Hara is stronger than a person, and it is stronger than the Yetzer Tov, and there's a specific reason why. And Rav Yitzchak Petterberg wrote an entire essay on that topic. Why? And the main reason in a nutshell is because Hashem wants us to be reliant on Him, not only for money, for health, but even for ruchnius. That we should realize that without Hashem's help, we're dead meat to the Yetzer Hara. So Hashem created Yetzer Hara stronger than us, so that we have to daven to Hashem. Hashem, help us against the Yetzer Hara. So here's Rav Yitzchak's question. If the Avera contaminates you more than lack of fulfillment of a positive commandment, but on the other hand, isn't there a concept that when you do a mitzvah, the mitzvah sanctifies you, the mitzvah is makadesh you, the mitzvah elevates you, the mitzvah clears your mind, clears your neshama, purifies your neshama? Now, what would you say is a greater force? The force of tumah or the force of tahara? Well, tahara is a greater force, right? Midah taiva meruba. So yes, the Yetzer Hara defiles us, but why when we do mitzvahs does the kedusha that we create not counteract that tumah and wash it away and wipe it away? Or let's ask ourselves the following questions. I think we know when we do an Avera, we feel sullied. We feel it brings us down. We feel a little bit contaminated. Do we feel the kedusha when we put on tefillin? Do we feel elevated? When we say Shema, do we feel elevated? When we learn Torah, do we feel elevated? And many of us may have to honestly answer, not so much. And the question is why? Says Rav Yitzchak Petterberg, there are two reasons for that. Quality and quality. What does that mean? It says like this, I'll tell you a story, that the Rebbe of Melech said that he used to think that there are three types of people that should be the biggest tzaddikim. Number one, the people who work for the Chevra Kadisha. They're always doing Tara, they're always purifying, they see death firsthand, they're staring death in the face. You would think that would bring them to your Shemayim. And yet, lav dafka. There are many people involved in the Chevra. But still, you would think they would be greater, and some of them are, but not all of them. Why is that? Another person who he used to think were big tzaddikim, people who worked in the mikvah. They're always involved in purity and tara and fixing the mikvah. You would think the person, the bathhouse attendant, would be the biggest tzaddik. And number three, the shamish of the Rav. He's always listening to the psukim of the Rav. He's always emulating he sees the behavior firsthand. You would think the shamish would be, a groiser tzaddik. And it's lav dafka. Why? There's one main reason.
Get used to it.
The reason is that if you don't prepare yourself for Kedusha, if you're not receptive to it, then it just goes over your head. It doesn't have a roshim on you. It doesn't have an impact on you. Yeah, you put on tefillin. But if before you put on the tefillin, you don't think, I am about to fulfill the commandment of Hashem, so you just do it, like you said, by rote. And if you do a mitzvah by rote, you'll be rewarded, but it doesn't elevate you. Because if you're not opening your heart, you're not opening yourself, if you're not allowing yourself to be receptive to what you're doing, it's not going to have an impact on you. Yeah, you said Shema, but you're just on autopilot. You didn't think beforehand, I'm about to fulfill the positive commandment of saying Shema. You get to the end of Shema, you have another mitzvah d'oraisa. Remember that Hashem took us out of Mitzrayim. If you don't stop and think, like it says in the Siddur, I'm about to fulfill the positive commands that Hashem told me to remember that He took me out of Mitzrayim, you're not going to be elevated. You put on your talis, you wake up in the morning, you wash the tilas yadayim. If you don't think, I'm preparing myself to fulfill the commandment of purifying my hands like Hashem commanded me, it's not going to elevate you. So the first reason why our mitzvahs don't elevate us is because they're on autopilot, they're on cruise control, they're by rote, right? Like the pasuk says in Yeshaya, Perek Chav Tes, pasuk Yud Gimel. Fatahi Yerasa Maisi Mitzvahs Anoshim Melumada. Our mitzvahs have become just habitual. Yeah, we go into the car, we get to shul, we walk in, zzz, we wind ourselves up, enough cranks to get about 63 shekels and 2 claps and 4 bows, and that's
You're
it.
worried about catching the bus or the train, you get to work.
Yeah, right. Our mind is not in it, so if your heart is not in it, your mind is not in it, it's habitual, the mitzvah will not elevate you. And here's another problem why the mitzvahs may not elevate us. Yeah, you put on the tefillin, but you know, if it's 1 millimeter below your hairline, it's as if your tefillin is in the bag. It's as if you didn't put on tefillin that day. Yeah, but I really wanted to. That's wonderful. It's wonderful you really wanted to put on tefillin, but you didn't put on tefillin. It's like a guy tuning in to 870. He wants to hear the traffic update, but I really want to hear the traffic update. Yeah, but you got to tune in to the precise station, otherwise you missed it. You blew it. So you put the tefillin on, but if it's below the makam ki bayres, you didn't wear tefillin today. If it's below the hairline, you didn't wear tefillin. Yeah, you said Shema. Did you say the words slowly? Were you medactic to pronounce the words carefully? What if you said v'yahavta instead of v'yahavta? You didn't say Shema. What if you mispronounced the words? You didn't say Shema. What if you wash until Yadayim, but you don't wash your whole hand? You just, you washed 70% of your hand. You didn't do the Natilas Yadayim. Why? Daven Shemon Esrei. But if you don't have Kavanah for the first bracha, you weren't Yatzei the mitzvah.
But Rabbi, let's call a spade a spade. The
Yeah.
human psyche, for most Beinimim, is such that even if you start out with having the proper kavanah on what it is that you have to do to prepare yourself for the mitzvah, putting on tefillin, on the touchdown, whatever, you do it every single day. The human nature is such that after a number of times, it's going to be more difficult to prepare yourself properly to do that mitzvah.
No
That's
question.
human nature.
No question.
And the Yetzer Hara gets a little stronger each time because he reduces the amount of kavanah that you have. Now, are there people in this world who are able to
No
overcome
question.
that?
No question.
100%. But my argument would be that 7/8 of the people at least are
No question.
not capable of having that same level or intensifying.
No question. We're not saying maybe that every single day of your life you're expected to put on tefillin the way you did the first time, but Chazal do tell us, we'll get to that soon, that's the ideal, that's the goal. But we understand that the Yetzer Hara minimizes our mitzvahs in 2 ways. Number one, he doesn't allow us to prepare for them. And number two, he doesn't allow us to fulfill all the details. So if you're missing one of those 2 things, the element that the mitzvah raises you up, purifies you, clears your neshama, is missing. Why don't you have the same thing with an Aveira? Why don't we say, I spoke Lashon Hara the last 4 times already. I'm not going to allow myself to be receptive to the defilement that the Aveira is giving to me. Why don't we say, I'm already so habitual in the sin, so I'm not really doing it the right, I'm not doing the Avera the right way, I'm doing it mitzvahs anoshim milumada. No, to that the Yetzer Hara comes along, and he gets us to do the Avera every day like we never sinned before. With such Islam. I've been talking during Chazar Hashatz for the last 50 years, but every day it's so geschmack to talk during Chazar Hashatz like I never did before. Or, why don't we say, I've been doing the Avera, but maybe today I won't do it with all the details. No. The Yetzer Hara gets you to do the Avera with every chumrah in the world. Your Yotzei the Avera l'chol hadeiros. How do we know the Yetzer Hara gets us to do this? It's a Gemara in Sukkah. The Gemara in Sukkah, turn over to sheet of number 10. The Gemara in Sukkah says, on Daf, Nun Beis Amud Aleph, turning on to Nun Beis Amud Beis, that Rabbi Yitzchak said the Yetzer Hara is Mizgaber alav v'chol yom, and another statement is Mischadesh alav v'chol yom. One is, he gets you to do the Avera, he's Mischadesh. He gets you to do it like you never did it before, with enthusiasm, with chidush, he reinvigorates the Avera. And the other thing he gets you to do is he's misgaber. He gets you to do the Avera with every detail and every chumrah and every small aspect of the Avera. So our mitzvahs are weekends. The mitzvahs, first of all, they're old. We do them like, again. And number two, besides the fact that they're old, they're not done properly with all of the details. So the message of the Shofar is twofold. Says the Medrash, "B'chodesh hazeh tichadshu ma'aseichem." The Shofar says, when you hear the sound of the Shofar, you know what the Shofar is telling you? Try to do the mitzvahs new. Try to make them fresh. Try to reinvigorate them. Right? Like, they sell this chemical you pour in your car. Reinvigorate your engine. Yeah, you believe this bottle is going to really reinvigorate. You don't even know what's in the bottle. It could be Coca-Cola. But it says reinvigorate, and you do it, right? So the message of the Shofar is, like Chazal tell us, Bayoim hazeh bo midbar Sinai, that when you divrei Torah chadoshim alecha keilu hayom nitnu, that we should treat the Torah as if it was given on this very day. That's the first aspect of the Shofar. B'chodesh hazeh tichadshu ma'aseichem. But the Shofar has another message, and that is B'chodesh hazeh Tishapru ma'aseichem. Very good, you're doing them new, but make sure you're fulfilling all the details. Make sure you're fulfilling that when you're saying your Shema, you're pronouncing the words carefully. Make sure when you're putting on your tefillin, it's in the right place. Make sure when you're doing a mitzvah, you're having the right kavanah. And if you're able to do these two things, you're able to make your mitzvahs new, and you're able to fulfill them with all the details, so now you could fight the Yetzer Hara. Because your Averos may be new and they may be fulfilled with all the details, but the Koyach HaKedusha is really stronger than the Koyach HaTamah. So the message of the Shofar is twofold. Number one, B'chodesh hazeh chidshu ma'aseichem, make them new. And number two, B'chodesh hazeh shapru ma'aseichem, make the mitzvahs beautiful.
You've just experienced another Torah class brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.